everybody, this is Julissa. Thank you so much for being here. If you're listening in the podcast, thank you so much for listening. And if you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much for joining me. I'm here today, guys. It is October the 4th, 2023. I'm here to speak about a movie that I recently saw, right? You probably heard about it probably on TikTok. The movie is called Prophet Suddenly, right? It's called Prophet Suddenly, and I don't know how I got this recommendation on TikTok, but one thing I gotta say, I'm sure everybody knows that TikTok is using some type of programming that they can, like, it's almost like they can, I don't know how their algorithm works, but they're definitely doing something extra because you can be talking about something, you can be even thinking about something without even saying it, and you go in TikTok, right, and immediately a recommendation comes up. There's nothing, we can deny that has been happening recently, right? So I gotta speak about this movie. Like I said, somebody was doing a review about it, how everybody must watch it, and I'm here to tell you the same thing. Basically, if you're a Christ believer, you should watch this movie. um, I wouldn't recommend this movie to like a new believer, but you make your own decisions, obviously. But once you've been in the church for a while, like myself, I grew up in the church, and I went to a Pentecostal church before, and now I go to a mega church, I guess you can say, and I used to go to a Baptist church also. You can see how the different approach is to worship and preaching and all of that after you have a lot of experience in the faith, right? Let me tell you something, guys. And before I even came here to make this episode, God reminded me that in the Bible, and towards the end, when they say, how will we know, God, that Jesus, when it's time for your return, right? And he speaks about these things that are going to happen, right? And I believe it's the book of Revelation also where it's mentioned that a lot of false prophets are going to rise, right? And they're going to say, look, there is the Christ, look, there is the Christ. And it's not it, right? And we know that lately, I don't know what's going on here on YouTube. Everybody seems to be a prophet these days, right? Everybody has a word from the Lord. And it's not, to be honest, when people say they have a word from the Lord, I believe that it has to be specifically for that person. When you come on YouTube and you are speaking to millions and millions of people and saying this could be for you, there is a sense of suggestion that you're leading whoever's watching from the other side is gonna say, wait, that sounds like my story that I'm dealing with at this moment. Maybe God is talking to me through this person, right? And let me tell you, because you have to also remember technology. Like I said, there is a lot of programming that is being used these days where they're gonna know things about you. We give so much information freely. There is no privacy anymore, right? So what I'm saying is that you can go on YouTube and be like, oh man, this message just came up to me. Maybe that's because of what I'm dealing with. And then you watch a prophet on YouTube, right, saying I have a word for somebody who's dealing with family issues, and you're like, oh, that's why God wanted me to come and watch this, right? All these things, you have to always remember how advanced technology is these days, right? So if you are, we all have our devices, right? We have so many things so many devices that are open in our home. And when I say open, it's open to catch phrases, things that you might be dealing with, right? You go to a pharmacy or you go to a store or supermarket, they know what you're shopping for. Things like that you have to be in the lookout for, right? And really question and be in prayer. Is this really from the Lord? Am I listening just because I have itchy ears and I want to hear what I want to hear? Or you can say, oh man, that person's, I do apologize about this noise, I forgot to close the window. But I gotta say, you can say things like, that person at church gave me a weird look, and then you come on YouTube and then there is like 7 reasons why you should leave the church. You come up one of those videos and you're like, see, that's it, I gotta go, and then we make this assumption that it's like, oh yeah, that's what God wanted me to see, that's the reason, and there goes our mind. And then if we're looking for it, we're gonna find it, right? We immediately go running thinking that this is what God wanted us to go. And you have to remember there is a big part of this whole technology that we use. They are advancing technology so much, you know. They're predicting programming. They're predicting what you're gonna search about. Okay, this is why you go on TikTok, like I said, and you could be thinking about something, and out of nowhere there comes a person on TikTok doing a video about exactly what you're thinking about. So be very careful about that. The Bible speaks about in the last days how many people who are gonna fall off from the faith. You know, they're gonna from the faith and leave to their itching ears, right? They just want the word from the Lord. They just want to hear from God, right? You have to get in prayer and fasting. This is why this movie is important for everybody to watch, because he speaks about prophets suddenly and how one thing leads to another, right? And we see so many of these prophets that are in the church right now, right? And they say, you know, this man is a man of God, this man is a prophet because he can tell you your date of birth, right? And your date of birth and, like, you know, what street you grew up in, right? I don't understand, like, that's in the Bible. I don't remember reading something about where they, you know, this man said that's the qualification because they can tell you what day you were born, right? um just you have to be so careful. You know, a guy who just reminded me the other day, I was watching this church that I tend to watch online, right? And they had this guy that came, I believe he came from Guatemala, right? A preacher, a prophet, right? And he said, you know, he had the crowd going wild, right? Everybody going crazy and worshiping, all of that. And then he said, I have a word from the Lord, right? And then he went and he said, who is this person, right? He's calling this person out. And then one of the people from, you know, one of the singers, right, came out and said, that's me, right? I don't know exactly what he said it exactly to determine that it was her. And then he said, you have two daughters, right? And she said, yes, this, and she started crying, right? Because he's saying, you know, yeah, I do have two daughters. And then she said, and you have this, and you're married to this, and one of your daughters likes to play like the piano or something. She's gonna be a worship singer one day. And then everybody's going crazy. And this is why you have to ask God for discernment. And I'm not saying you have to be careful, right? You don't want to accuse anybody, but let me tell you something. Like, you're gonna pick somebody who is already part of the worship team, right? And I understand anybody can get a revelation, right? But I'm saying these people are not just regular worship people from a church down the road that nobody knows about. This is a mega church that's very well known, that the worship team, they create music CDs, albums, right, every year or probably every 6 months. They're very famous, very well known. So you're gonna pick that person who's very famous, I guess you can say. She has a very big career in that church, right? She does all this stuff, right? And then you're gonna say, your daughter, you have this many daughters, right? And then immediately, as I'm watching this, I go on Instagram and look for her, because I know, like, I know her name and all of that. And I'm looking at her Instagram and I see that she said, I'm a mom of so and so many daughters, her name is this and that. He also said the name of the daughters, right? And he said, and then, you know, on Instagram we share a lot of information that, you know, just for fun, right? Even though it's private. And then she said, oh, my daughter is taking piano lessons and this and that. And it's exactly what the guy said. It's exactly word by word how many kids she has, the name of her kids. That's what he said to her. And then that one of them plays the piano. And you know, you cannot, it makes sense to say to somebody who's a worship singer, one day one of your daughters who already has a musical talent, she's gonna probably be a worship singer one day, right? And the crowd is going crazy right now. And I'm thinking to myself, this is just interesting to me, because this guy preached very well, and then he went to this prophecy that he was saying to people. And I'm like, oh my goodness, it was just so surreal to me, because I go on Instagram and I see all the information that he's giving this woman, right? It's not somebody he picked that came in the church like first time, right? He picked somebody from like who's already in the pulpit, very well known in the worship team for many years, and he's saying basically everything that you can see on her face on Instagram page. I'm just gonna leave it there. This movie, going back to the movie before I get too into this, you have to watch this movie because it gives you like kind of like a behind the scenes how things like this work, right? um People, the word of God said, I mean, when Jesus was here, when Jesus was here in the flesh, he even said, blessed are those who believe without seeing. He wants our faith, right? We're so quick to be like, yeah, that's a man of God because they told me my last name. How will he know my last name? He doesn't even know me, right? And you have to watch this movie, I guess I can say, to understand what I'm coming from. I think that there's going to be so much deceiveness that's going to be thrown out there, specifically in the church, right? You have to remember also, guys, in the Bible it says, when Jesus said at the end he's going to turn to them and say, depart from me, I never knew you. He's not going to say that to people who don't believe in any of the Bible. He's not going to say that to unbelievers. When Jesus is mentioning this, somebody comes up to him and say, hey, Jesus, in your name we cast out demon, in your name we did this, in your name we did the other. He's gonna turn around and say, depart from me, I never knew you. He's not speaking to unbelievers. Okay, in the book of Revelation, which I've been reading now doing the reels, he also speaks about how he says, I have one thing against you. He's speaking to the churches. So, like, I don't understand how these people are fooling. They think they can fool an audience because they have a lot of applauses, right? And they can get people to go wild, go crazy because, oh my goodness, he just told me the street of, where I used to live, the street name in my country of origin where I used to live. He's a prophet of God. And there's gonna be so many things like that. Something interesting that happened to me many years ago. I don't think I've spoken about this before. Like I said, I used to go to this church, Pentecostal church, right? And this preacher came, very famous too. And this man of God said he had a word for somebody, and then he came towards me, but he came, like I said, he came with his finger like that, kind of like accusing me. And he said, you gotta get right with God, right? And at that moment, I didn't want to say anything because my mom was sitting right next to me, right? And I know she can get really mad. Why is this guy singling me out and pointing his finger at me, right? And I don't understand what that prophecy, like, how is that edifying anybody to be singling somebody out and accusing them, right? I don't know if he heard something from other people. I don't know exactly what it was. All I'm saying that in that moment I was thinking to myself, I didn't say anything. I just I was completely in shock that he was talking to me, and he was talking to me like that also. I was thinking to myself, wow, like, I'm sitting here in the church, like, I don't understand. And it was just so surreal to me that he said that, kind of accusing me. And then I come across the story of the woman who they're saying to Jesus, this woman sinned. In the Bible it says we should be stoning her. What would you say, right? That story. And Jesus said, he didn't even reply. He just went down and wrote in the sand, whoever is free of sin, cast the first stone. I don't understand how this man of God that he calls himself will go out to churches and accuse people in public like that, right? And he's gonna say he's the man of God because God told him, and he's gonna accuse people like that. So you have to be so careful, because if he wasn't somebody like myself who knows the Lord, right, who knows the Bible, who perhaps is the first day in the church, if they're thinking of committing something crazy and they go to church to be in church, right, the things that we do in church, to hear the word of God, to worship, to be around people, and have fellowship, and this man is going to single you out like that, what could have happened to somebody who wasn't strong in the Lord, right? And in that moment, and it's been so many years, like I said, after that, I still don't understand why that happened. I just don't understand why things like that happen, but I'm sure I will know soon, because I just have the feeling. That's why I probably am talking about it now, right? But anyways, I would recommend this movie. It's called Prophet Suddenly, you guys. If you guys have been in the church for a while, and if you know how, you know, um, we've seen so many prophets in YouTube. It's going out of it's out of hand, I think. And the reason that I say that is because it's not what they're saying to you guys. It's not as specific. They're saying I know somebody who needs to watch this. If you're watching this might be for you. Like, the suggestion of that could be insane, because, like, it leaves, when something is from the Lord, it's never incomplete. So if you say you have a word from the Lord, it's going to be specific, and you're going to know exactly who you're talking to, right? So when you say, I don't know who needs to hear this, that's what they say. I don't know who needs to hear this, but this might be for you. 50% of that is your assumptions that might be for you, based on whatever it is that you're dealing with in that moment. So I don't understand that, but because there is such a need in our human, you know in our human minds to kind of like get revelation immediately, right? We don't want to get into fasting and prayer, so we are so crazy to hear from the Lord and be like, I need an answer, I need to know if this is it, right? So we, itching ears, that's what it is, itching ears, falling away, following these people who call themselves a prophet, that give you maybe 20% of revelation without even know if it's for you or not, because we're desperate for answers, right? Itching ears. So this movie, once again, is called Prophet Suddenly, right? I believe it was filmed in Nigeria. The actors, they did great. You can really see the movies here on YouTube, by the way, or if you watch it, listening in the podcast, it's also on YouTube. It's called Prophet Suddenly, and you can see how a person who had a ministry, right? He had a ministry that wasn't really bringing in the cash, I guess you can say, right? And speaking about money, right? But anyways, this ministry that he had wasn't getting the money, right? And I do understand there comes to a point that when you're working so hard, right? You're working so hard, and I'm laughing because I had my business for so many years. I'm like, I'm done, and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna reopen again, because that basically told me we're not done yet. So it comes to a point as a business owner or something, when things are not moving for year and year, right? And you're like, okay, this is it, right? And remember what Jesus said to the fishermen. He said, cast the net on the other side, right? So when you get to that point, right, when things are not moving, you've been working hard for so many years, you're willing to do whatever it takes, well, a lot of people are, right, to just say, to prove yourself and be like, yeah, this is gonna work, right? Because look where I am now. So this man had a ministry, wasn't making enough money, wasn't, taking a lot of time from his family life too. And then he meets somebody and encounter a demon, I guess you can say. And that's, you have to watch the movie, right? One thing leads to another, and you can see how this demon gave him powers to kind of like see things and be able to prophesy, not prophesy, but like, now people think it's a prophecy when somebody comes to you and say, oh, I know what your last name is, it's this and the other, and they're like, that's from the Lord. They know my last name and my date of birth. Oh my goodness. So you can see in the movie how this is all developed, right? And then it leads to, when there is fornication, the minute people taste fornication, it's very hard to come out of that. The same thing, guys, with sexual abuse. This is why a lot of the kids, right, a lot of people that have gone through sexual abuse, they tend to kind of like abuse other people unless they have been delivered from that or overcome from that traumatic experience. It's just one thing leads to another, okay? And it is so sad. And the whole thing also that God has been bringing to my attention also is the whole thing with money, right? What type of manipulation is the church doing these days, that they're saying, if you want your miracle, God is saying to sow a seed of $50 right now? Like, A God that doesn't even force himself into anybody is going to ask demand for you to pay him to do a miracle. It's just getting to that point that it's like so scary to even like have conversations like this that I'm having just here, like videotaping this to see what you guys think about it, because it is so crazy. Money, the whole thing about people are so willing to do whatever it is. Somebody's very sick and you go to a church and the pastor is saying, I hear the Lord say, everybody who gives me $1,000, who puts a seed of $1,000 right now will get their miracle that they're looking for. People have gone into debt. People have lost, mortgages. People have not paid their rent because of what the pastor said, right? And then a lot of the times what ends up happening is that whoever is brave enough to go back to the church and be like, hey, I gave my $1,000 seed, and my cousin or whatever it is, they're still sick, and they're like, oh, it's because you didn't have enough faith. They'll take the whole route, or even saying, or somebody in the family is living in sin. That's what it is. And it's so crazy. It is so crazy that this is a lot of the churches right now. Okay, and then they're gonna go to God and they're gonna say, in your name we did this, in your name we did the other. And he's like, you never know. What are you talking about? Who are you? You're gonna say that you did all this stuff in my name, but you're robbing people? Like, you're gonna say you did all of that, you never have communion with me, you were just doing it to get likes, to be famous, to go in these private jets and things like that. Guys, we need to be very careful with all this stuff that's happening. Okay, we need to be very careful. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming and listening in the podcast and watching this. And once again, the movie is called Prophet Suddenly. Again, I only recommend it to people who have been in the faith for a while now, to kind of know what a prophet is supposed to do, and demons and things like that, because it's very, we don't want you to be like, it's a very kind of like, in the Christian level, it's a very advanced movie, right? So if you watch it and you don't even know how demons operate, you don't even know things like that, you might have so many questions afterwards. And it's okay, I guess, if you have a pastor to ask the questions to, or if you go to Bible story. Thank you so much, study. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming back to my channel. Have a great night, everyone. God bless. Hi everybody, this is Julissa. I'm here to invite you to my podcast, Julissadesigns, and it can be found on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. You can join me every day as I make episodes of the latest news, real life stories, and I also share my favorite Bible verse. Hope to see you then. God bless. Everybody, this is Julissa. Thank you so much for coming to my YouTube channel. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And if you want to know more about me, you can always visit www.julissadesigns.com. Have a great day, everybody. God bless.